Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back into another episode of The Buster Show. Today, we have my friend Nema Vand. He is a
What's up, man?
digital
How are you?
media creator, and he has a podcast called Off Brand. My friend, thank you
What's
again
up?
for being here.
Dude, it's a pleasure to be here and connect with you. I'm so talking cards is like right up my alley. So this is always a fun thing for me to do.
100%. Let's just start it off talking about cards. Right before we came on, we were talking about what we're passionate about. So why don't you give a little bit of background on your card passion as it stands, and then a little bit later on we'll get into you as a business person and everything else.
Yeah, so I mean, here's the thing. Like I am a new player in the card game, and I think a lot of people might relate to that position because it's when you go on to like YouTube and you come across people who are heavy in cards. Buster, you're heavy and you have a background with cards. I think the intimidation factor can be sometimes really high. You're dealing with people who've just been in it forever. They're super knowledgeable. They're talking about things that like 6 months ago, I didn't know what the hell a PSA 10 even meant at all. And
Right.
so there's a really like huge intimidation factor that you just kind of have to like turn your mind off to, be excited to learn about it. And then, as you learn more and you get into the hobby, you start to realize that like this is a cool thing that you can also make money on at the same time. And that's kind of a perfect world for me. So I've just been reading up, 1:37 p.m. drops a lot of heat in their, articles about stuff that have
Nice.
really taught me so much. And I'm super into it now. It's been 4 or 5 months and it's like, there's like no turning back. So
I love it. Are you most into basketball and vintage, or are you looking where are your eyes?
I own a singular baseball card. I'm going to hold it up right here. And I bought it like on a whim. It's a Cody Bellinger card. And it was just for like Dodger pride.
I
I'm
love it.
very heavy in basketball. I grew up watching basketball as a kid. I'm a firm Michael Jordan is the GOAT believer, like I'm in that camp, that generational camp. And yeah, it's the sport that I'm most connected with. I love football too, but football cards don't seem to be as prevalent in the space, at least in my experience. Baseball is obviously has a long standing history, but I just know the most about basketball. So it made the most sense for me to get in an industry that I knew about, you know?
100%. I think it really just comes down to the fact that basketball players are more famous. There are fewer of them. They don't wear helmets, so they're super visible on TV. When they take a free throw, you see them. Whereas when anybody does anything on the football field, you don't even know what they look like. So I think that's kind of the base of it. But also, if you got in, well, in the since quarantine, the card market's gone crazy, and there
Crazy.
hasn't been a game of football played. So I think that probably also has a small bit to do with it, but I don't think football will, to your point, ever catch up with basketball, and baseball is all just guessing.
Basketball, what's also unique about basketball for me is that it's really like positioned in pop culture. Like the sneaker culture is huge. That's
Totally.
connected to
Yeah.
basketball. I mean, I just watched a YouTube video the other night because I was bored of like LeBron James on stage at Staples Center with like Drake. You know what I mean? Like that
Right.
it's crossed over into like hip hop and shoes and now cards. I don't know of a sport that's done it quite as effectively as basketball has. And so again, for me, my interest, if I'm gonna like be spending my money and reading articles, it has to be somewhere that I'm interested in. And again, like I'm also a 90s wrestling fan. Like I love the Ultimate Warrior and Hulk Hogan.
I
Like
love it.
that was the best thing. So I'm just gonna start buying like vintage WWE cards because again, interested in that. Like that's me. So
I love that.
yeah.
That's
Actually, it's funny because Gary and I will debate all day long. He says the Macho Man is the greatest wrestler of all time, and it like nothing aggravates me more than that statement because
why. What's your thought?
I think I think Hogan is the most prolific wrestler of all time, but I don't know. To me like it's Hogan or the Warrior, man. The Warrior might not have been the most. Well, let me put it this way: Hogan's the most prolific wrestler, but Bret Hart is the greatest wrestler of all time, is what I would say.
I'm not as familiar with wrestling in general, and especially wrestling in the 90s. Is that like the LeBron Jordan debate of wrestling?
I would say Hogan, Macho Man, and maybe Andre the Giant and Bret Hart are sort of the four dudes that really like vintage dudes that came up to find the whole generation, the whole industry, and are probably would be like on a Mount Rushmore. If I had to pick four people, it'd be those guys.
I love that.
So, yeah.
That's one of the best things about cards in general, is especially now with the depth that everything is going to. If you're a golf fan, you can buy golf cards. And
Totally.
some vintage golf cards are selling for a hell of a lot of money. When you look at the goats of any sport, you can look at the goats of tennis, like the Roger Federers, the Rafael Nadals, even older. You look at golf, you look at Jack Nicklaus and Tiger Woods. These things are going for big money, and you can find, whatever point you can get in on, whether you have a couple $100 to spend or a couple thousand, wherever it is. There are cards that you can find that will appreciate long term, in that. And I think to
You
your,
and I talked about like the WNBA, or not WNBA, excuse me, women's soccer being like a huge.
I remember, yes.
Yeah, I mean, so Buster told me that, and when you said that to me, it was like a light bulb went off. I was like, wow, like talk about like a completely untapped market. I'm a huge Women's World Cup fan. Like, I look forward
Yeah,
to it every time it
they're
rolls
the
around.
best. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
you know what I mean? And like, so it's just, I was like, wow, like that's something that I think you could get in at a very cheap level now, and especially when the Women's World Cup comes back. If the card market is consistently growing, and you're getting those cards now, and the Women's World Cup comes back in 2 years or whenever it's going to come back, it's going to explode. The appreciation will be through the roof. And so that's a market that I'm looking at now that I wouldn't have looked at before.
100%.
Right.
I also think, to that point, just women's sports in general are so underrated in the card
Right.
world. It, they don't get any love right now, and that's ridiculous.
Totally.
Especially when you look at the goats like the Serena Williams, some of like the Simone Biles of the world, just some of the most prolific athletes in general, whose
Right.
cards you can get like steals. I
And I
think,
think that like, and I think really Kobe Bryant, like, rest in peace to him, LA legend. But I think Kobe really elevated that conversation by bringing so much awareness to the fact that like women's sport, like he was such a champion for women's sports that it got me more interested than I was already interested. And then it got me
right.
like more interested because someone that I grew up watching was such a champion for that industry. So yeah, I mean, that's the beauty of cards, man. Is like it almost takes something that you're interested in and then like magnifies it 100 times, at least in my experience. So,
a
and
hundred.
and why I wanted to do this with you was I just really wanted to like offer the perspective of someone who's newer to the game, who
Mhm.
again, there's a wealth of information out there and you just kind of have to like learn as you go, but it's also like really fun to learn as you go, so it's not like you're
Yeah.
studying a history book, you are kind of, but I'm just really enjoying the process more than
But
anything.
the history book's also being written every day. Like when you told me that before, I was like, everybody's a rookie. I'm a rookie. Like Gary's, like we're all rookies because
Right.
it all changes every single day. And if I could predict the future, I would be a billionaire right now. I can't. Nobody can. And that's the fun of it.
And let me tell you where that's not fun sometimes, and that's part of the journey. Is I bought a Giannis rookie card, a 10,
Okay.
and right now with his poor performance in the playoffs, that card has gone down a couple $1,000s below what I bought it for. And I think that for me, one thing that's really kept me sane in this process is that I see this as at least at minimum 3 to 4 year involvement for me, if not longer, if not indefinite. So I am really like key to not get rattled by something like that. We've talked about this. I know that the market's going to go down during the off season. That's natural. So, I don't get rattled by those like short-term losses. It sucks. It sucks to like have your card be cut in half in valuation, but
Right.
it's part of the game. So, you know,
Totally. It is the stock market for cards, yet it's a lot, for some guys it's a lot safer, and for some people it's a lot wiser than other things you could be doing in the sports realm with your money. you're a lot better off buying a Giannis PSA 10 and that going down a couple thousand now, when obviously it's going to double the second next season starts or the second he leaves Milwaukee in free agency or resigns. Either or, the attention from that spikes the value. But besides the point of that, um, just the market in general being a better alternative for people in contrast to you going out and betting on the Milwaukee Bucks versus Miami, because you're like, oh, let me put X that I spent on a Giannis rookie card into them beating the Miami Heat, and I make a couple thousand off of them doing it, and they fall down. You're going to be destroyed because there is no long-term value. There is no fun. There's no community in betting on that game, whereas you get all the complete opposites by buying that PSA 10, even if it goes down short term.
Totally. And what I also love about this is, and this is something that's like, I guess I don't see a lot of, Gary's mentioned this a few times and it's really stuck with me, is like, I'm a huge Charles Barkley fan, right? Like huge. I just think the guy's hilarious. I love his commentary, like his churros videos. I can watch that shit all day long. And like, I bought my first Charles Barkley rookie. It's a PSA 9, right?
Nice. 86 Fleer.
86 Fleer PSA, and I was totally priced out of the PSA 10. No shame in that whatsoever. It was just, I was not in the financial position to drop like $6,000 on a Charles Barkley rookie card. So I bought a 9, and there is something really fun and tangible about having this in your hand. Like it's actually, it creates a connection to the player, and also it's just, you really feel like you're owning a piece of memorabilia. And I've collected memorabilia from shoots that I've done. I work in the production world in LA, so we did a thing with like Jay-Z back in the day, and I made him sign a poster for me, and it's like framed in my house.
No way.
Yeah, and like I have like a Brett Favre signed ball, like just little things on shoots that I like ask people to do. And I'm more stoked about these cards that are not even personalized or autographed or anything, just because it took, I guess, more work to get here with these cards, like more research, more fighting it out on eBay. And yeah, so again, having something tangible is really, I think, very underrated, for me.
100%. And I'm sure, this is definitely true with myself. And I'm sure it's true with you as well. Like when I first got into it, I couldn't afford anything in the hobby.
Totally.
Like, literally, the best card I had, I can't even remember. Well, I got lucky and then also unlucky. I told you the story about the fact that I had a Giannis RPA and traded away for a Kyrie auto. Like I've also had the Giannis Prism. Like all that aside, I didn't have very nice cards. But to be able to get some of those cards that I wanted, 5-6 years ago, and now it makes it all the more special.
Totally. So. And we were just talking about this off air that like, we're both moving or trying to move into more vintage cards these days. And one of the cool things is it really feels like you're owning a piece of art. And one of the bad things is that we're priced out of a lot of it. Like vintage is super expensive. And I never feel bad about not being able to afford the card that I want. Like, or I'll go down levels in PSA that I wouldn't do on regular cards, but I'm willing to do that. Like I would never consider a PSA 3 or 4 unless it's a vintage card. And so, for me, that's part of the fun and it's part of the growth. And maybe you get some newer cards that appreciate over time and you want to sell a bunch of those, cash out and buy your first vintage card. Like there's so many ways to get into that. And so that's the part that's really just been like a fun experience for me, is just like maneuvering my way into different cards that I might not be able to afford at that moment, or how do I get there? So
100%. Yeah, I mean, and nobody should ever spend more than they have or more than they should ever.
Totally.
No matter what.
Totally.
Definitely don't put yourself in a position where you need something to do well or need something. When you put money into any investment, you should be prepared to lose every dollar.
Exactly. Which is a sobering thought. You know what I mean? And people who, like myself, who are new to the business, who don't have maybe a long-term historical appreciation for cards, when you read about like the great card crash that happened in the 90s because the market was saturated by overprinting of cards, that's terrifying. I mean, it's a terrifying reality when you're sitting on cards that you've invested your hard-earned money in. So the well, the moral of that, of what you said and what I'm saying, is to just like really do your research. And I know that sounds like a cliche, but like this is your money at the end of the day. You know what I mean? Like whether you spend it on a cup of coffee or on a $1 card, it's your money. It has that you put value and work into it. And so I just really implore people to like take the time to really research where they're putting their money.
100%. I want to dive into. I know you have a few cards there,
Yeah.
and then I'm gonna show you some after that.
Did we talk about the fact that did we say that we're on the same group chat with a bunch of guys who buy cards and talk about cards all day long?
Oh, it's the best. You got to surround yourself with people that share the same interests in everything, but in cards especially, because we're in this chat. It's a national chat with a bunch of fellow people from all different areas, but with the
All
common
walks of life. All
passion
walks of
for cards.
life. Yep. Everyone's genuinely very cool, very interested in the industry. And what I was telling Buster before we started recording was like the amount that I learned out of that group chat. Like I'll just sometimes sit and read the messages because it's so important to see what your peers are buying, what they're high on, what they're not high on. I learned more from that. I think that and the 1:37 p.m. articles really like they've really committed to like educating people on cards, probably better than any mainstream publication I've
I
come
agree.
across.
I
You
agree.
know, yeah. So like between those two things, like I've really learned a lot because outside of that, when I come across articles online, sometimes like it's written, I find that it's written from the perspective of people who are either just like slanging cards all day long or have been in it for 30 years. And there's a little bit of like a lack of relatability from where I'm
Right.
at in my life, where I'm like, okay, like you're buying $200,000 worth of cards. Like I have nothing that I can relate to this. So I don't know. I think it's find people who are interested in it, who enjoy talking about it, because that's really a source of like a untapped resource of knowledge.
100%. I completely agree. Did you want to show a couple of what you've
My favorite cards are yeah, of
yeah,
course.
see it.
I have like stacks of cards. So I will tell you, I am super, super high. Let's start with like the newer guys and we'll end with the older guys. And I'll go quickly.
Perfect. Perfect.
So I am super, super high on Luka. Like I don't care like if the Mavs got knocked out. I don't care. Like this is my Luka PSA
Woo!
pack, you know? And I literally like I will buy these cards all day. I think Luka is the next face of the NBA, and I'm a
That's
firm
very
believer.
nice.
I think he's on pace to become this like Larry Bird, Magic Johnson hybrid player, you know? And so I'm super, super high on him. I think he's one championship away from this card
So
exploding.
for those listening on audio, it's a Luca PSA 10 base
Yep. Yeah,
prism.
Panini Prism, Luca PSA 10. Yep, standard rookie card. Yep.
Very nice. Classic base prism. And you held up how many? 10?
I have 12 of them,
12
actually.
of them. Oh
It's
my
the
God.
only card that I've really stacked, man. Like I don't really stack a lot of other cards. Some of that's financially driven. I just don't, I'm not in a position to stack major vintage cards. So when this card was priced pretty effectively, I went in on it. And again, that's based on me being very high on Luca. Again, with what Buster said, it's a risk. Like I knew with every dollar that I spent on these cards that if Luca flames out tomorrow, that this is going to be worthless. I was okay rolling the dice on that because again, the guy is just destroys.
Well, that one's done pretty well so far.
Yes, it has. Then I am really we've talked about like the Giannis. I've got some like sort of mainstream guys that are newer, but they're like in the older, newer class, like the Kevin Durant's and, the Anthony Davises. But I'm really, really, really into players that I grew up liking and watching. So I'm going to share 4 cards here that I like, that I really enjoy.
Amazing.
I already showed you guys the Barkley, so we're going to skip that one. But so I grew up watching Hakeem Olajuwon. Like I loved Hakeem Olajuwon. And so buying his Fleer rookie was a card that I really, really wanted to get, because I think Hakeem Olajuwon is going to go down as like a top 5 center of all time. And I remember him. People don't hype the guy, but the guy was drafted before Michael Jordan. He single-handedly denied Shaq rings in Orlando and put a clinic on him, put a clinic on Ewing. I mean, there were 2 guys that really denied Patrick Ewing a ring, Hakeem and Jordan. That's it. So he's in really good company in that regard. So I'm really high on him, and I bought that card. Again, I was priced out of the PSA 10. There's no ego in that for me whatsoever. I was fine with that. I was cool to be priced out of it. Got the PSA 9. Card appreciates because vintage does, and I've been really happy with it.
PSA 9 for vintage is amazing. It's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of PSA 9, this is my first ever card purchase, and this was a major leap of faith that I don't think most people would do. This was a
PSA.
Yeah, so this is like the Jordan PSA 9 rookie card.
Whoa, that's a big one.
It's a big one, and I bought it in January. And
wow, round of applause for you.
And our mutual friend Gary told me that he was like, get this card. It was $8,000, and I remember thinking to myself, $8,000 for a car? Are you like out of your mind?
Oh my God!
It took me like, I'm not even kidding. It took me a solid week of just mulling this over to get to purchase this card. But Michael Jordan is my childhood defined, you know? And so the way that I justified this purchase, and this is what worked for me, was I said, if this card devalues to 0, down to 0, and I have to take a bath, I'm still going to walk away feeling excited to have a piece of memorabilia to Michael Jordan because he was so iconic to my childhood. And that's why I bought it. Of course, it's exploded and it is sort of considered the holy grail of cards now. So I'm very lucky in that regard. But again,
incredible timing with the quarantine and the last dance. Amazing.
Exactly. And then, you know, I mean, here's a card, a classic card that's vintage that it's weird. I don't have a huge connection to these guys, but I bought it because of the group chat that we're on. People who are, again, all walks of life, educating me constantly. I started to see, and you know this because you were there, you're starting to see all this hype about this card. You know, again, Dr. J was before my time. Magic Johnson was right before my time. And Larry Bird, again, these guys were hitting the end of their careers when I was a kid. Like when Michael Jordan took over in 91, that's when I, as a kid, was watching basketball.
Yep.
So you know, like even growing up in LA, like Showtime Lakers don't really, like I think of the Lakers, I think of Kobe and Shaq. Like that's the Lakers to me.
Yeah.
So this is not a card that I would ever instinctively buy, but because I have a community of friends around me who hyped the card up, talked about the long-term growth.
The hype was real on that card.
The hype was real on that card.
Very real.
I got to tell you, once I started to see people that I am talking to regularly buying that card aggressively, I thought, okay, this is a card I got to get into. And then, of course, you do your own research and you realize, like, it's not just our group chat. Everyone's
pretty obvious. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, you know, and again, this is where the research comes in because this card is extremely valuable, but Fleer makes a 1986 Magic Johnson card, which I guess is not his rookie card, but it's in that 86 Fleer set.
Are you talking about the triple that just has him on it?
Well, there's one that just has him solo on it. And I think it's 86 Fleer, but I don't think it's his rookie card. That was the card that I instinctively went to go buy. I'm like, Magic Johnson's iconic. I should own his card. And that's where like educating yourself comes in, because a buddy of mine who's really smart with cards and is a purchaser and stuff was like, no, that's not the rookie. That's not the card you want. You know, it's not a bad card to own, but it's definitely not the card you want to get in on the first card.
Right. It's like somebody putting all their money into a Bowman LeBron rookie. It's like, that's not great card, but that ain't it. That ain't the Chrome.
And that's a great little segue to what I want to say about my purchasing, I guess, ideology. Because I'm new, because I don't have that institutional, like, long-term thing. I don't buy variations of cards. I should, I don't, because I am at this stage in my life with cards. I'm buying rookie cards. I'm buying cards that are sort of iconic that I know are going to stand the test of time. I am not seasoned enough yet to be like, okay, I have a LeBron rookie. What other LeBron cards do I want to buy? I'm not there yet, and that's okay.
Hey, buying
Yeah.
what you know is the best way not to lose.
Right,
You're
exactly.
minimizing risk to a very impressive extent, and that I think is something to commend you for, rather than say that like you're not anywhere yet. Like that is everyone should only buy what they know until they know more, and then buy what they know.
Exactly, and I think it's it's calculated risk. Buster knows this. I've been on the hunt for a month for that LeBron James, Melo, Wade rookie card, and
Yes, yeah.
I've been outbid on it. I mean, like I almost had a PSA 9 of it. It was like that snipe last second eBay thing.
Those last 5 seconds are ruthless.
Yeah, and here's the thing, like I don't ever get upset about it because I'm just like, look, like I'm not gonna overspend to get this card, and if I have to deal with the disappointment of just having to wait longer until the right deal happens, then that's my path, you know. And that card flies on our group chat all day long, and it's hard to see, and I'm like, God, everyone's got this card, but again, like everyone's position is different. Like you just cannot make your purchases based on what the person next to you is doing. Like that's the easiest way to get in trouble in this business.
100%.
So
Especially when, like, let's say you bought that Jordan PSA 9 1986 Fleer rookie in January. You texted in the chat in April, and I'm like, oh, great, let me go buy it. I'm buying it at 4 times the cost of what you bought it for. It's two separate worlds. They're not comparable.
Totally.
So that's why you just cannot. Yeah, you got to do your own research. Definitely look and ask people for advice and learn things. But like me buying that card in April, in contrast to you buying that in January, it's 2 different cards.
Right. Completely. Yeah. So again, I take it all with like no ego, and it's everything is a learning opportunity for me. And again, this basketball heavy, maybe a little WWE for nostalgia. That's where I feel comfortable purchasing cards, and it works for me. So
All right. So
Buster's about to drop some heat on me right now. I can already see it.
I'm gonna give you. You'll never hear. I'll show some like little stuff like Roger Federer 2003 PSA DNA rookie Net Pro.
Are you heavy on tennis? Is that like your thing?
I love tennis. I'm not crazy about it. I just have like a lot of. I don't even know what I have here, but here's what I wanted to show you.
Yeah.
You'll never guess. It's not a sport.
Okay.
But I consider it sports cards. I've only sent it in the chat one time.
Okay.
And nobody said anything.
I must have overlooked this. All right.
Nobody said anything about it when I did. I've explained this to other people privately, but there's a completely separate market in collectibles, especially. I wouldn't even call it politics, but I would call it just in presidents in general. There's a really, really big collector community when it comes to presidents.
Wow, I had no idea.
These right here, they look like cards.
Yeah.
They're in PSA DNA cases, and I have them signed by a bunch of presidents. So this is Jimmy and Rosalind Carter.
Wow.
President and First Lady. Here we have Bill Clinton, dated and signed to.
Is there anything on the back, or is it just done?
These are note cards for the most part.
Wow.
They look at the size between this Charizard and this card. They're the same size.
That's unreal. I was an American politics major in college, so like this is way up my alley actually.
Gerald Ford.
Wow. Dude.
Yeah, I got more. We're like Herbert Hoover.
Oh my God. Herbert, that's like
this was cut out of a letter that he sent.
Holy shit, you are like literally holding history.
George Bush first.
Yep.
Here, I got one more.
What got you into this? How did you
Just
sort of organically like fall
this
into this?
is a signed check from Benjamin Harrison from 1899.
Oh my God.
So let me explain though. Let me give a little bit more context as to why
Yes.
I'm doing this when nobody
You
else
just blew
is.
my mind, dude. Like you blew my mind right now.
Essentially, I look at them just like cards. There have only been 45 presidents. So 45 presidents, 450 NBA players times 60 seasons. There are 45 presidents. They have the most power. They're the most famous, and some of them don't sign that much. And a lot of the
Right.
guys, especially older guys, their signatures, although so it's kind of interesting, and I say this every time because the newer the president, the more recent the president was in office, from Clinton to Trump, the rarer the autograph is
Why is that?
because everything they do is digital. So Obama, it's almost impossible to find an Obama autograph because uh, he didn't sign anything. Everything was digital. Whereas back in the day, like a Lincoln autograph is 10 times more expensive than an Obama, granted, but there's a chance that there are more Lincoln autographs out there than Obama's because Lincoln used to say like sign a thank you note for coming to dinner, for coming to breakfast.
So these are obviously cut out of other things like letters, things that they
Yep.
did.
Yep.
Uh, does the source affect the price? Like if where it's cut out of change the valuation of it?
For older guys, 100%. But for like this Bush, this is literally just an index card. Like it has
Right,
line. There's
right,
nothing
right.
special about that. But for something like the Clinton, this was actually off a photo. You can see on the back, it's a photo.
Yeah,
So that does have some effect. Also, if they dated it, that has an effect. And if they wrote anything else, like he wrote thanks, that obviously
that's
has a little bit of effect.
unreal.
But they remind me of sports cards. So the reason that I am bullish on them is that A, they're very cheap because that sports card market hasn't hit the president autograph market. B, because they look just like cards. And C, I just like it. I'm also a fan of history and presidents and not as much politics, but more so just like the whoa factor of presidents and kind of the power and impact that they had. So that is something that
I gotta tell you, like I genuinely had a wow reaction to that Woodrow Wilson card. I mean, there's just
I
something that's
love that you refer to it as a card.
yeah, whatever the yeah. Well, there's just something really surreal about. I mean, you are literally owning a piece of American history right there. And like you said, there's just maybe it's saturated with the older guys because they signed more stuff. I don't care. There's only 45 of them. You know what I mean?
Oh,
So it's
hey,
like you said, like
and when I say saturated, I'm not talking about like LeBron rookie population. I'm talking like there are a couple hundred,
yeah,
maybe,
yeah.
as opposed to like a couple.
I'm literally buying my first presidential signature card the minute we get off this call. I'm not even kidding you. I'm gonna text you the purchase too, so you know I'm
I
not bullshitting
will.
you. Yeah.
Amazing. And
Actually, you know what's funny? I remember you sending that now in the group chat, and I remember seeing that, and I thought that was a joke, like a meme about cards, like, oh, this is the next thing that's gonna go down. And so I remember laughing and thinking, like, well, that's not real. And now to know that it is just it's mind blowing, you know?
really real. My other big guy, I'll flip through them quickly. Pikachu is
Yeah.
my guy.
Well,
I
like, can you explain to me, for someone who did not grow up with Pikachu, it was the generation right after me, how the valuation works and how that compares to like the basketball market that
Yeah.
we're both in?
So for example, I'll just give a little bit of background context to Pokemon as a whole. It's the number one entertainment franchise of all time. It's made 90 billion in the last 20 years. Star Wars is number two at 40 billion in the last 40 years. It's a
Wow.
global brand, started in Japan in 1995, launched in the US in 1999.
Right.
This is the card that you want. This is the PSA 9 of the card. This is the Pikachu. Pikachu's the face of the brand from a character standpoint. It's Ash, who's like the trainer guy, but Pikachu's the main one.
Got it.
And then there's another guy who's pretty popular. It's Charizard. I flashed one of his cards.
These are names that I've heard forever. Obviously Pikachu, but I've heard Charizard too. And I like,
Yeah. So Charizard's the most expensive. The Charizard first edition, like this, is in a PSA 10 is 80 to 100 grand.
why is that? Why is that card the most expensive?
because it's from the first edition set, it's a holo, which means it's holographic. There are fewer of them, and they're very rare, highly sought after, just like anybody else. He's like the Michael Jordan, or the Charizard's probably more like a Honus Wagner, whereas Pikachu is Michael Jordan. This is a first edition red cheeks. So the cheeks, as you can see here, are red, as opposed to, here, let me find one that's yellow, as opposed to this one, which the cheeks are yellow.
Wow. Oh my
so
God.
Red cheeks is more valuable than the yellow cheeks. This is a red cheeks first edition PSA 9. I believe they're in the range of 1,500 to 2,000 each for red cheeks 9s, and 10s are in the range of 8 to 12,000.
Wow.
So that is the context there. But to quickly go through some of the others, this is the first edition of a different Pikachu set. I'll just quickly flash through so you can see all the different artwork. This is a birthday Pikachu. It's PSA 10.
Can I ask you a question about this in terms of like, is there a concern ever, and maybe there's not, I don't know, about overprinting all of that? Because in theory, they could do that, right? I guess they could do it with basketball cards too, though.
These are all vintage, though.
Oh, they are?
Yeah, okay. All of them. Like, these are all from 1999, the first ever print. Like this, even the other first edition ones, like these are all pretty much all 1999 or 2000. So first or second year. And that's what really protects everybody. Like, they can't ever print more 1986 Jordan rookies the same way they can't print more 1999 Pikachus.
Exactly. That's good to know.
So yeah, man.
This is a perfect example of where, like, someone that I know and trust, being you. Oh my God, what are those?
So Nintendo owns Pokemon. They also own a game called Mario.
Right.
And they combined the two for this one set. It's a Mario and Luigi Pikachu.
Is that just like through the roof valuation?
Not actually. I actually just bought a second set yesterday.
No way. Wow.
So I have 2 more on the way.
I think that we're going to see a whole series of like Nintendo cards coming out at some point too, because that's another like vintage world that I don't really see that much of.
Probably not, but I hope so. This is a cool one. This is from actually 1998, so before it launched in the US. It's all in Japanese.
Wow.
This is from a vending machine in Japan.
The artwork, it looks different. The artwork looks different. Like,
it's called the Ueyama Pikachu, and it's from 98. Even the back is different from the normal card.
Wow, dude, that's so unreal.
So somebody got this out of a vending machine. It's a PSA 10 in Japan in 1998, and then somehow it was able to hold up condition.
Unbelievable.
Here's another one from before it launched in the US, also in Japanese, from 1998.
Yeah.
Called the Bumblebee Pikachu because he looks like a bumblebee from up above. Let me see if there are any other special ones I want to show. This one is a cool one. This is actually the most valuable Pikachu I have.
Why is that?
It's because you might be able to see there's a tiny, tiny stamp. There's a little bit of glare, but there's a tiny stamp right there that says E3.
Okay.
And that means that it was from the very first convention in the US, and they did these special edition ones for that E3 convention. I'm sure you've heard of the actual event itself, but
yeah,
the pop is about 50.
No, wow.
And it's red cheeks.
Oh, so
I have the yellow cheeks here too, but red cheeks is the one.
That is like the one.
Here's the yellow cheeks of the E3.
Do you buy most of your stuff on eBay, or do you buy it through like third-party vendors or Facebook groups or things like that?
I buy most from eBay, and then I buy some from friends and other collectors, and I mostly sell like in person to people as well. So like I have sold a bunch of Pokemon. Right now even, there are probably 15, 20 cards I have listed all over. Like even this PSA 9 Charizard I'm selling right now so that I can buy more Pikachus.
How often do you do that? How often when you're sitting on a card that's like, let's just say it's really up, how often do you say, I'm going to like sell this card, I'm going to take the profit, and I'm going to diversify into 6 cards that are maybe half the valuation, but I can get more out of that? Like what?
Right. Like here's an example I'm going to give. Everybody, even in our group, is so hot on this guy. This is a Kevin Durant, not BGS 95
I
rookie,
know
right?
that card too well. Yeah, I don't own it, but I know that card very well.
So this is a card, it's going to go up. And that's
Right,
a beautiful thing. I can't wait for the person that I sell this to make money off of me.
right,
I
right.
don't want anybody to lose money that I'm selling a card to. I want
Same.
you to do well. So
Right.
somebody's going to buy this from me. They're going to make money. And I'm going to put this into 5 to 6 cards, probably half Pikachu, half other stuff. And I think I'm going to do better on those 5 to 6 on average. One of them might even be a KD. Maybe I'll buy a silver PSA 10 hollow of his first year with the Nets if I think he's going to win a title next year. You know, like that is a game that I do frequently play because yes, this will go up a ton, but 5 to 6 doubling in value or 1 doubling in value at a higher.
I
It's
had this exact same conversation with Dan Fleischman, who is in our group chat, about that same player, but not that card. It was this card, which I had bought a 10, the sort of standard Kevin Durant 10.
yep.
Dan was stacking nines. And I said, why are you buying nines? And he said the exact same thing. He said, listen, that 10 is going to go up. There's no question. But as that 10 goes up, it's going to bring the nines and the eights up with it. So if I can buy a bunch of nines right now that are priced really low, when everything goes up a year or 2 years from now and that 10 becomes like an unattainable, it's just too expensive to own, he goes, I make more money on the volume of the nines than I would in owning maybe 2 10s that go up. And so that's really been the seed of my thought of like, well, at what point do you start selling a little bit to be able to like diversify out more?
So true. It's the classic rubber band effect. This is also common in Pikachu. It's the PSA 4, 5, 6, 7 are going crazy right now because the 10s are priced out.
It's we were talking about this. I own some PSA 3s and 4s in the ultra vintage world. Like it has to be really, really like, for example, I'll show you this guy, like
That's a nice guy right
but
there.
it's a PSA 4, and it's like,
Hey, that's still a very nice card. You know that.
exactly. I was totally priced out of the 5 and the 6 on the Lou Alcindor, and I was like, that's cool. Like I'm cool owning a 4. Like that's gonna be my card. And I don't know that I feel the need to like buy a 5 or a 6 now that I own that one. But if this card really appreciates, then I might sell it and diversify out a little bit more. So
100%. 100%. The rubber band effect is very real with all grades.
yeah, but again, I just really like for me, I think getting into it as a new guy really was about finding trusted sources to learn from. That's just like everything to me. I really, really struggled with that because there's just so much information out there. And I think one of the things that people, if I could give any advice to anyone who's just starting out, who wants to get into it, besides the fact that and you and I have talked about this a million, that's not too late. Like get in now, it's not too late.
Yeah.
Is reading up about trend, what cards are trending and why they've trended. That taught me a lot. I spent a lot of time reading like, why did a Kobe Bryant Topps Chrome rookie trend the way that it did? And then couldn't afford a Kobe Chrome. So I bought the Kobe regular Topps PSA 9. That's the card that I could afford, and I bought that because I saw the way a card in the same group was exploding. And it's similar to the KD 10-9 theory. I thought, okay, as that card hits the stratosphere, it's going to pull these other cards up. And that's where I want to be positioned at. That was strategy for me. I could have spent $6,000 on a card that may have gone up a little bit, but that wasn't where I wanted to be. So I bought my singular Kobe Bryant PSA 9 that I love to death, because I'm a Laker fan here in LA, and that's what we roll with, so.
I love that, man. Yeah, it's smart. I think to the story that you told about talking to Dan, stacking those 8s and 9s at volume and being able to move those a lot easier is, what's inevitably going to pay off bigger. So super super good point for everybody just getting into it now, and not to hedge way too hard on that 10 or put way too much emphasis on getting that 10. And
Remove the ego. Don't hedge it. Remove the ego. Surround yourself with people who genuinely want to see you win, who genuinely want to see you make money, who are going to support you in that endeavor, because you feed off that energy. You learn from each other. You feed off that. It's like you said, you want to see someone buy that Kevin Durant and like appreciate through the roof on it. And like that's that's the mindset of people that I want to surround myself with and do. So, you know, that's again, that's the card community of people that I would suggest you get around you. And by the way, like I've gone to the Burbank Sports Card Shop here in LA, walked in and met really cool people who I did never even knew, who were totally willing to like drop knowledge on me on like a random Monday afternoon because they were like, oh, this guy's genuinely interested. They're not dicks. They're gonna be cool. Let's talk about it, you know. And so it was again. I find the community is actually very welcoming to people.
super. And
Yeah.
something that's very true in general, and this goes, much bigger than sports cards, but people love talking about what they're passionate about, especially
So
when it comes to a hobby. When it comes to a hobby like sports cards, people, myself, yourself, we'll all talk for days on end about what we love in terms of sports cards and our hobby. So, for anybody out there who wants to get into it, talk to people who are passionate about it. I'm more than happy. Nema here is more than happy. We're all more than happy to talk about cards because we live and breathe it. We love just talking about it. And I really do think one of the reasons that people love talking about their passion so much is they find new ways to articulate things that they didn't even think prior, just in conversation with this person or that person. So people are really, really, really willing, especially in the sports card community, but in hobbies and passions in general, to just drop knowledge because people love talking about what they're passionate about.
totally, man. I'm getting DMs all day long from people these days who are telling me, "Oh, I've got these cards in my attic. Like, what do you think?" And the first thing I always say is, "I am still learning. I'm not an expert and should not be taken as such." But I direct them to articles and people that will genuinely be able to help them. Like, I can't even tell you how many times I've sent that 1:37 p.m. article that talks about like your old cards in your attic, how to quantify those things. Like, I've sent like 10 people who've sent me messages being like, I want to learn about cards. I have these
Yeah,
cards that
I got to start sending that one to people too.
it's great. It's great reference. So
Um, I want to talk a little bit about you and
yeah,
your background. How did you get started in the LA and commercial area? Because I think it's
totally,
kind of
man. I was in corporate America, hated it, knew I wanted out of it. I thought I wanted to go to law school at one point. Like I was a lost soul, dude, like completely. I had no idea what I was doing. And an opportunity came to own a company that was like a talent management company, like putting actors on set. My ex at the time had worked in that. She was lateraling and was like, "Oh, I wish someone wanted to learn this business. I would totally teach them." And I was so desperate to like get out of corporate. I was like, "Teach me." And so she did. The company exploded. From year one. It was profitable and like really profitable, to where it's been 10 years that we own the company. From that,
wow.
I started working with my clients who were producers, commercial production people, branded content experts. And I was kind of on the front row, like watching these people do that and being like, I want to do that. I want to do what you do. And so pushed my way through because I don't like getting no for an answer. So I just pushed my way through, started jumping into productions, flew up the ladder, all of a sudden was getting like real major stuff underneath my belt to where I prepped multi-million dollar Super Bowl commercials. Like I can do it like in my sleep now, but it took me a minute to get there and really fell out of love with big broadcast productions. Like I hate the bureau. I mean, I always give this example. I had a client on a shoot, a French couture client who I'm not going to name because they wouldn't appreciate it. Like this is a $2 million commercial. We're literally shooting at the same house they shot the November Rain Guns N' Roses music video in, right? Which is the only thing I give a shit about in this entire day, is like that's where like Slash was.
Mhm.
And they like freaked out because I'm not exaggerating this, the forks in the back of the shot, like there's this long table and the silverware at the back was not French silverware. And they were like, that's a big deal. Like, this is from France. And I remember having this thought in my mind being like, nobody cares about this commercial. Like, literally, no one cares what we're doing. No one's ever going to see this. And that was the first moment where I'm like, I love what I do, but I'm in the wrong side of this. And so I'm pivoting my whole career to digital content. I mean, I think I'll give you
Such a good story, by the way.
very
That's
direct.
so good.
I think there's more value for a brand to partner with Hoops Nation than there is. I genuinely believe this. To partner with Hoops Nation and cut some content with Hoops Nation, digital content, or a 1:37 p.m. or these brands that are sort of like culture brands, right? Than it is to go and try to shoot a commercial in LA, have to worry about buying ad space. People have DVR. First of all, the next generation doesn't even fuck with TV at all. They all watch Netflix, and also they don't.
A lot of people right now don't.
Right, and then the people that do, like, I work in commercials, and I still DVR through commercials. You know, unless it's
Right.
one that I did, and I'm like, oh, cool, that's that thing we did. So digital branded is like it's how people are digesting media now, and so for me, like a Hoops Nation provides so much more value to, like, let's just say I'm launching a sneaker brand and I want to get some traction on it. Partnering with you is so much more valuable to me as a up and coming sneaker brand than trying to go shoot some content in LA, spending a fortune, and then hoping that people see it. You know what I mean? And they probably won't, or they probably won't
Right.
care. So
It is also much easier online to quantify how many people see stuff, how many people engage, how many people directly convert. Unless you're using like a code or some sort on TV, it's hard
exactly.
to tell how many people even came from the place. I remember watching an interview with Jeff Bezos from, I think it was like 1996, and he talked about why they stopped advertising. They used to do ads in the New York Times, like they would write out the URL at the bottom and people would like click on it if it was online, or they would type it in if it was print. And he explained that they stopped doing it for Amazon at the beginning because you couldn't track anybody. You don't know where the hell people are coming from, and you need to be able to run things based on data. And if you have no data, but you have nothing.
Totally. And so now with my career, like I work really well with talent. I think it's just having had the background of owning a talent management company. So I'm positioning myself now to start directing more content and really being the guy that is responsible to sit with the talent and just be able to like talk through it. I was very fortunate to roll for like 2 years with Adidas Originals, and they
That's
were
dope.
putting me, it was like me, the director, and the client were going in to like sit with 21 Savage, you know what I mean? And just like, and
So much
granted,
fun.
that was Terrence's project. He was a director, it was his vision, but I was getting a front row seat to those conversations and how that creative is massaged out. And you know, like with young rappers, like authenticity is everything. Everything to these guys. Like the minute they sniff you out as a phony, like they don't want to mess with you at all. So it was such a like learning hard knocks type of thing that I'm now like, between that and the Bravo thing, like I feel very well positioned to be able to like go onto a set, sit with a talent, connect with them, and be able to like deliver what we think is the best message for a brand, and hopefully in a way that's authentic and not phony, you know.
So you mentioned obviously staying super authentic, but what are some other key things that you always remind yourself of when going into work with talent on developing some sort of commercial or idea or project around, similar things?
Well, you have to remember, in branded content, a lot of the creative is massaged at the agency level. So before production comes in. So if there's an ad agency, they have their executives and their creatives who are working directly with the client. So by the time we come in to like execute the creative, it's already been done for me. In fact, I had a friend, I'm spec directing a commercial for a friend. And one of the things he told me, he was like, look, we're going to give you a chance on this, but you're not going to like go off on a tangent. Like we spent 2 years market testing this idea and put it up against 5 other ideas, took meetings with every ad agency in New York City. So like, we're not going to let some like up and coming director be like, this is what I want to do. It's like not going to happen, you know?
Right.
So I think my number one thing is like trying to be aware of what the brand, what they self-identify as. Like really at the end of the day, like what is their message? What do they want to convey? And then how can you bring that to life in your own unique way, but still respecting the work that they've done, like the very hard work that they've done. And then, you know, believe it or not, man, like I'm such a proponent of being a kind-hearted, good person, and like surrounding myself with people that I think genuinely respect hard work and want to see people win. Like if I want to see you win and I want to see Hoops Nation win, then like I genuinely wanted to see Adidas Originals win when I was rolling with them. I wouldn't have taken those jobs because, to be honest, I was working till 2 a.m. every night on those jobs.
Right.
Yeah, but I genuinely wanted to see them win. Like they were cool people and I loved the ad agency that represented them. So I think that when you can connect those things, it makes it a lot better. You know, the jobs that I did not care about, the big broadcast jobs where the client was kind of a, you know, they were kind of jerks. Those were the most miserable jobs for me, where you were just going through the motions of it, you know? So finding a way to like be empathetic to the brand and trying to really genuinely help it grow has been the most rewarding thing when I'm stepping onto a set and trying to, because really as I grow into this director role, like you really are responsible for that. It's a huge responsibility that you carry on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like think about Hoops Nation. Like think about, so let's just use Hoops Nation as a total micro example here.
Yeah.
So Hoops Nation is a brand you built through like sweat, blood, equity, tears, like, you know, years of just doing it on your own. And let's say you entrust me with a shoot, like, you know, this is what we want to do. This is the concept we want to have, and we want you to help us with it. Well, like that's a huge vote of confidence from me, and I take that really seriously. So like now I don't really care about like my reel of like, well, this is going to be really good for me. I don't like that doesn't ever factor into my head.
Think about
My thought is like, well, how do I make Buster walk away from this being like, that's the best thing we've been a part of. I'm so glad we did that. And so I guess that's just been how I've operated with company, and why I think I've just been able to like be successful at it. So
I love that. Yeah, I always say, you know, and I try to notice these things when I see them, and it's always the people who end up doing the best are the people who when they send you an email, they're like, "Hi Nema, I really these are the two examples. Hi Nema, I really like your work. I was wondering if you could come on the phone with me and give me some advice for these things I'm trying to do." That's example one. Example two is, "Hi Nema, I really love your work and I'd love to help you in any way possible. I'd love to, you know, like provide value for you. Anything that you need, let me know. I'm here for you." You know, and the difference is just lots of eyes and being very selfish, especially when you're reaching out to somebody and offering value. And the people that offer value always win. It's just too obvious. Yet 75% of people do option one.
yeah, and I think you're 100% dead on. And I actually like had a conversation like that recently with someone, and I said, look, this is where I want to grow, and I have a lot to learn, but I want to be able to help you in any way that I can. And I'm not worried about being paid. Like it's not for me. It's what I would gain in coming there and being able to work alongside a team that I respect is like so much, and being able to provide hopefully real value to you, because at this point I can prep shoots in my sleep. And so like I can help. That's something that from day one I can do for you. Yeah, I mean, I think that like that vote of confidence is huge. And so you have to be able to inspire people to want to help you a little bit. And the one thing I'll say is that when I've been on those shoots that I like did not like where it's just like the client sucks, the shoot sucks, everything sucks. And I've just
Hopefully
like,
not too many.
no, I mean they've been there, and
Been there.
sometimes will have a moment where I'm like frustrated and I will stop and I'll try to find a place of like appreciation where I'm like, look, you're not in an office, you know, and then no disrespect to anybody who is in an office, but I'm like, you're on a set on the back lot of like Universal Studios right now, shooting a commercial. You should be so lucky. Like this is like the fact that like the universe blessed you with this opportunity. You have no place to complain about anything. And believe it or not, that like really humbles me because I remind myself that like nothing is guaranteed, and my place here is replaceable like that. So the fact that I'm
Hopefully for all of
here,
us.
yeah, exactly. So that really helps me, and I do have those like pinch yourself moments on sets where, you know, we shot with U2. We recreated a U2 concert one
That's
time,
so
and
dope.
like literally, like I'm standing next to Bono on stage, and he turns to me and he like asks me some random question, and I'm like, holy shit! Like is Bono asking me like a random like when's lunch? You know what I mean? Like that. Like it's just the most surreal. Like those are your pinch yourself moments that you're like, I'm really lucky to do what I do. So he's a lovely guy, by the way. So
That's both of those things are great to hear.
yeah, yeah,
Um, my last question for you here is
sure,
best advice. Majority of people that listen to this podcast are 15 to 25.
sure.
What would you tell yourself? Let's just drop dead right in the middle. I'm 20. So what would you tell me or anybody at age 20 what your best advice would be
Well,
for
you're the worst example because you're
I'm
killing.
terrible. I'm
Yeah,
awful.
you're a bad example, but that makes me proud to be your friend. I will say two things. Number one, undoubtedly, without a question, like the number one piece of advice I would give to anyone is you are the company that you keep, period. If you're around people who are, if you have five busters in your life and you're 20 years old, you will be the sixth dude who's creating a hoops nation of your own. If you're around five people who are just doing nothing in their lives, I don't care about, this has nothing to do with money or jobs. I'm talking about like the hustle, the mentality. You will ultimately adopt in many ways the mentality of the people that are around you. So keep that circle very, very, be cognizant of the energy that's around you. And then get a mentor, and ideally a mentor in a space that you, I know that's been said a million times, but like there's a reason that it's been said a million times. Like let's say you don't have any idea what you want to do, like you're 20 years old. I had no idea what I was 20. I was totally clueless. I would have benefited so much by just go like mentoring with someone, even if it wasn't in the industry that I wanted to do, who just had the work ethic that I needed at 20 years old. It took me like hard knocks to get to this point. Had
Mm,
I just surrounded myself with somebody, let's say like I met you and you're older than me, and I have no interest in like digital media and Hoops Nation, that shit just means nothing to me. The
right.
fact that I could have like learned from your hustle and been like, listen, Buster, I want to be your assistant for 2 years. I'm going to be your assistant and I'm just going to be around. Here's what comes with that: being around you, being around your work ethic, being around your mentality, and then being around your network. Because you as Buster are going to find out very quickly if my dedication is real or not. And assuming that it is, and you're like, wow, this kid's putting in work, he really means it. The amount of connections, relationships I'm going to get, the amount of opportunities that are going to come from that, where let's just say I'm like, you know what, dude, like I'm actually really interested in real estate, and you've got a buddy who works in real estate and you're like, listen, this kid's been assisting me for 2 years. He's the real deal. Take him on. That's the best thing you can possibly do in your 20s is go and mentor. I mean, like Gary Vee puts that video up where that guy says, can I come work for you? I mean, the balls of steel that kid asked, you know, where he's like, and it's like, that's what it takes, because that kid realized like I'm uprooting my life to New York City is much more valuable to me in that moment. And you worked for Gary, you know what I mean? Like you're a prime example of what I'm talking about. So really keep that company, find a mentor, find someone who believes in you and champions you, and get rid of anybody who is negative towards you. Self-doubt is a real thing. I still deal with self-doubt to this day. So like if I have my own self-doubt, I don't give a shit about your negative feelings towards me. Like whatever I'm doing, like as long as I'm not harming myself or somebody else, like if this is what I want to do, I don't care what you have to say about it at all.
Right.
At all. So
100%. I
Yeah.
think that's great advice. And I put it, very similarly, but in my head, I'm like, does somebody make me happier? Okay, cool. I'll hang out with that person more. Does somebody make me less happy? That's it. And sometimes it can be a trick because sometimes somebody can make you happy 20 times in a row and then something changes, and that's just something you learn. It's something that I learned. But you just got to, like you said, be super cognizant of those things and make sure that, like, when I say happy, I don't just mean like smiling and laughing a lot and enjoying myself. Like for me, somebody making me happy is somebody motivating me, somebody
Totally.
um, who's teaching me things, like, or somebody who we're co-learning from each other, like whatever it is. That's what my happy is. So figuring out what you're, making sure that you're happy is productive, and then I think those terms, that terminology works. But that's how I look at it. But it's a learned thing, and you gotta mess up to figure it out, and just be
And
grateful for your mess up.
don't feel discouraged if you are listening to this and you haven't pieced that together yet. Like it took me years beyond 20 to piece that. But yeah, man, like kindness is just such a thing, dude. Like it's just one of those things where I don't even like, a friend of mine values kindness a lot, and he had a trainer over, and the trainer like helped me out too. And I was like, hey man, thank you so much. Like that was really cool of your trainer who's like here to work you out, like it's helping me out. It's very kind of him. And he looked at me kind of surprised, and he's like, I don't have anybody in my life who's not like a positive, kind person. Like it was very matter of fact. And I remember thinking like, that's where I need to be in my life. Like I don't have, like, same thing. Like, does it make you happy? Are they going to support you? You
That's it.
know? So,
End of story.
and that's the same rule for dating, by the way, for anyone who's out there listening. Like everyone's going to have ups and downs, but if you are with someone, guy or girl, who does not support you, and you don't champion them, then it's not meant to be, period. Looks will fade, everything will change. Don't judge people on stupid shit like that. Is someone at the end of the day going to make you happy and make you better and challenge you to be better? And that's it. That's all you
Is
need.
that also your best relationship advice, or is there anything else to add to that? That's something I want to touch
100%.
on more.
100%. So I operated for years from a place of insecurity where I was chubby and all I cared about was having a pretty girlfriend, and that's all that I wanted. Those were the most stressful relationships in my life. No disrespect to them. When you're putting that as the primary factor for why you want to date someone, it's doomed. Now, what I look for, and and my ex was like this, is somebody who is kind-hearted, somebody who approaches life from the lens of like gratitude and empathy and kindness. Because what's going to happen is that when you guys go through some real shit, and I'm talking like real shit, like let's say someone gets sick in your family, God forbid you guys have kids and a kid gets sick, real stuff. That's where someone's empathy and kindness and their heart is going to shine. You don't want somebody who's going to be selfish or not care what you're going through. And that, and on a micro level, like let's say you want to get into basketball cards and you want somebody who's going to be like, hey, that's really cool, like not shame you for being into that. You know what I mean? Like, so again, it's just about,
100%.
you really hit it on the nail. Like it's does this person make you happy, and then having the wherewithal to realize like what's real happiness, and if you can connect those things. My approach to dating and my approach to like a friend are the exact same thing. 100% the same thing.
Yeah.
So
I mean, there's a lot of reasons people always say that they end up marrying their best friend.
100%, dude. Totally. Yeah, without a doubt.
So it's funny. Anyways, I think that's a great way to close this one out. Um, I know people can find you at Nema Vand on Instagram,
That's right.
NEMAVAND, and Off Brand, the podcast. Is there
which,
anywhere?
which you're going to make a cameo on very soon, and we're very excited
Woo!
to have that. It's going to be not about cards, but it's going to be about life and all of that. So when you get
That's
out
gonna
here,
be
we're going to
fun.
make that happen. So
I'm excited about that. I'll be
yeah,
in LA next week.
love
And
that.
then
Then we're doing it next week. There you go.
from
I
then on,
think we have it tentatively on the books, but I'll confirm with you today.
I think we have for the something. We'll figure it
Yeah.
out. I think we have it on. All right, my friend. Thank you so much again for coming on.
You're the best, man. Thank you for having me. Such a great time chatting with you. Cards, life, everything. Really appreciate you.
Boom. Till next time.
Thanks, man.
All right.